Hello, everyone. This is Paul the Oakenite coming to you with a quick yet belated review of one of Awaken Realm's recent efforts, ISS Vanguard. So, why belated? Well, rewinding back to May of 2021. Yes, Brunhilde, that's May of 2021. I bit on the Kickstarter pledge for the game. And still being a bit of a Kickstarter babe in the woods, I opted for the single shipment option for the game. Actually, I don't remember having done this, and certainly do not recall being told anything about the impact of making this choice, but that must be what I did. Well, because of my choice for having the base plus expansion ship all at once, rather than as available, my box of goodness did not show up until February 2024. Taking my shoes and socks off for a quick count, that's 2 years and 9 months of wait time, during which Vanguard's core box had long been released. What torture! Seeing my long awaited prize available even on Amazon with nothing coming to my front door. Oh man. To be fair, Awaken Realms has proven to be 100% reliable and that I have always received 100% of whatever I have pledged. But oh man, this one had me going. So now I'm an older and wiser Kickstarter pledger, but still, my own rational expectations for Kickstarter is that I should receive my pledge within 18 months. And if any option significantly delays that, it should be disclosed. After all, the pretty pictures inducing my pledge showed off a game and expansion that looked pretty much done and ready to mass produce. Clearly, in the case of ISS Vanguard, this was not the case. So, with that small rant out of the way, let's take a look at the base game and see what I think of it. So, how about some background? Well, good news. Earthlings have discovered the technologies required to explore the universe, incorporating them into a single vessel, the ISS Vanguard. Bad news. The Vanguard is desperately needed to discover the secrets of a barely known alien race that have left breadcrumbs to follow throughout the universe. ISS Vanguard is a story-driven mission of discovery. If you follow my channel, you know that I have a mixed relationship with so-called narrative games, going back to the original B-17 Queen of the Skies, up to modern entries such as Skyhawk. To me, games present interesting and novel situations that require me to balance risk and reward and make decisions. Many narrative games, to me at least, come across as low-tech movies where I get to passively watch as the plot unfolds, but don't get to decide much of consequence. ISS Vanguard is not one of these games. The story behind Vanguard is presented in just over 100 pages of log entries, similar to the approach used in a game I have presented earlier, This War of Mine. But unlike the former, Vanguard provides a downloadable app that players can install on their phones, iPads, and so forth that recreates the log manual to perfection, complete with very credible voice acting. This has been done before. After all, there are modules for Gloomhaven and Frosthaven that are available as add-on purchases to their games, but Vanguard makes the support app available as a free add-on that anybody can download. Pretty cool. More on this later. So I would like to go ahead and show you some of the components and stuff so you have a more concrete idea of how this game is put together. What you see here is the ship book. This is where everything happens when you are not on a mission. It has that different set of rules that I mentioned. It's not defined in the rule book, but rather it is laid out as a series of bullet items in order that you're supposed to do things when you are not on a mission. So the main thing is that you have tabs and you have lists of things to do. And especially in the beginning, when you're not familiar with the game, you really kind of need to look at each one and do whatever it says to do. And at the bottom, it tells you, okay, when you're done with this, go to page 2, the bridge. That's resuming a save game. Go to the bridge. This has, I'm probably about 5 missions into the campaign. Now, so these are the bridge add-ons that I've collected. You have an objective, as well as, in this case, I have a secondary objective. And technology level, my morale is in the tank. I got beat up in the last mission, and it was really bad. So my morale is tanked on my ship, and that's going to cause other problems as we go forward. And these are basically various capabilities and technologies that you've amassed on your ship. You go through the bullet lists. Now you can, once you get used to it, just look at the higher level items, and what that will do is give you a general idea what happens in that section. And if it doesn't apply to your current situation, then you can skip to the next major bullet item and then go down that list. All right, at the end of doing the bridge, you go to the star map. And the star map refers to this book, which basically shows you all the various star systems you can get to in the game. Generally speaking, there's going to be one planet on each star system that you can land on, and then that's where you would carry out an away team mission. But this is where you would figure out where you're going to go next. It costs energy to go from place to place, and your ship has an energy capacity that may or may not be sufficient to get you where you would like to go. Generally speaking, yes, it will get you to where the next story element needs to be done, but it won't let you just dive into the farthest away planet from the beginning. So you're going to be going step by step, forcing the story to unfold in the way it's supposed to go. This tab here is your current location. You just put it in the booklet for you where you last were, and that's reminding you where to pick up again. You are also provided with this star map. Each one of these is a star system, and I've recorded where I have gone as I've explored. And I think I said 16 before. It looks like there's more like 20 different places to go in the base game. Plenty to do right now. I am maybe a quarter done with it after lots of hours of learning and playing. Certainly nowhere near the end yet. Then there's the expansions. After you visit the bridge and do what you're supposed to do there, you go to page 5, which is the star map, which I mentioned. We do that. And this is where it tells you to go and figure out where you want to do next. Sometimes you have multiple choices. Generally, you will. And you have to figure out where the next spot is. It does give you some clues as far as the challenges you might encounter at a given location. And sometimes you're ready for it, and sometimes you're not. And you're going to need to try to tilt things in your favor by not going farther than your capabilities will currently allow you. Let your research catch up, and so you can be successful in what you're doing. So he goes with the star map. Adrift refers to if you ever run out of energy without actually being at a planet that you can do something at, then your ship is adrift and it kills your morale, and it's just a bad thing. So it's basically, I doubt that'll ever happen because you're not going to let it happen. But it does force you to, go through the story elements as they intend for you to do. All right, and then when you're through this process, you go to the ship facilities. Now, depending on what your capabilities are in your bridge, you will have a certain number of command points. Each command point will allow you to visit one of these locations once. So in the beginning, typically, you're going to have, say, 2 command points to use. Situation room is where you can resolve, quote, situations. You're generally going to get 1, sometimes more of those in a turn. You can let them accumulate. They will do things, generally bad. Or you could go to the situation room and try to get rid of them. Research lab, just what you think it is, performing research to increase your capabilities. Barracks, this is where you recruit new team members. Even though only 4 go down on a mission at a time, you're typically going to have several times that, 4 or 5 times that as far as your total crew. And I'll explain that in a second. When you go to the barracks, you get to pick 5 crew cards at random and then actually accept 4 of them and assign them each to one of the 4 different sections. So each section will get exactly 1 new guy, and the 5th guy will get put back in the deck. Add-on facility, I don't know what that is. I haven't gotten there yet. This is something that you have to earn farther into the campaign than I currently am. Production complex, you will learn how to make stuff, and by putting command points over here, you get to actually make stuff. All right, so each one of these will branch you to a different page. So for example, here's the research laboratory. Here are research projects that I'm eligible to do. Now, this red text down here, and it's on most of the pages, is important because when you pay a command point, that gets you to the research lab. You get to do one thing for free, Okay, that earns you the right to do one research project, but you can do more. And you do that by assigning additional crew that are not going to go down on the mission to the research projects. And so sometimes you can do more than one in a turn if you allocate additional crew to it. And typically you will have extra crew. You're just going to have to go to the barracks and just make sure you have them. One note is that you can never use the last crewman in any given section in the ship book because you have to have at least one representative from each of the four specialties to go down on the next mission. So if you have like 3 scientists, you can use up to 2 of them in the book, and the last guy is going to actually go down on the mission. Okay, we have research, we have production. This is research projects that we currently are eligible to do. And here they are in the production queue. So these are guys that I have assigned to the production queue earlier in the game, and they can go at 1, 2, or 3 turns delay, depending on what the card says. The actual project says how much delay there is, and that's going to be the number of turns it takes to push them through the pipe. However, by assigning additional crew to this function, you can move them along faster. Then we have barracks. This goes through the process of recruiting. The situation room, that gets rid of the situation cards that you're going to get each and every turn, most of which are bad, and this will help you get rid of them. The hangar, now you're picking a landing craft. The way the ship works in this game, it's kind of like the Starship Enterprise that never actually lands on a planet. The Vanguard is up in orbit, and you need to send your away team out on a shuttlecraft. And there are various shuttlecraft that are available in the game. Right now, I have the Space Ranger, and that is the one you begin the game with. Through research, I have gotten the Pelican, and they each have different capabilities. And if we look here, we see that there are various things that you can assign to your landing craft. This is carrying capacity of a couple different types of units. This is defensive capabilities. There are 3 different categories, maneuvering and shields and the like, that because when you land on a planet, you don't just show up there. You have to go through a process of die rolls to get there. And if you don't have enough protection, you can tear your crew to pieces before it gets down to the ground. So for example, my first mission, when I didn't really have any add-ons to the basic craft, when my crew finally landed, they were all wounded. We had lost a third of our supplies, and I forget whatever else was bad, but it was really bad. We managed to get through it, but it was tense. This tells you where you are in the process of landing. So it needs 1, 2, 3 successes to get down to the planet. So basically that's going to be 3 chances to get you and your crew beat up. I suppose there's some ways it can get set back, but generally it's going to be 3 if for this particular lander. Others will have their own stats. Here you can assign modifications that increase these ratings. This would be done through research. Here's just where you put stuff to carry them. This is the number of supplies you get to carry. Supplies are critical when you're on planet. Your guys are always going to be expending dice out of their available dice pool whenever they perform an action on the planet. And to get those dice back again, they have to rest. And every time you rest, you burn a supply. So this is kind of pushing you along to make forward progress. Because if you want to refresh the guys that are actually doing stuff, you got to have supplies. Sometimes you can discover more. Sometimes they get taken away from you. Supplies are always in the front part of your mind. Okay, so this is the thing that gets you down to the planet. It's the first thing, or at least one of the first things you do when you are trying to make your landing so that you can actually begin a mission. Here are technologies that have been researched during my game, such that I can optionally plug them into my lander before we head out, but this particular lander can only take 1 structural mod and 1 utility mod, and these are divided into structural and utility mods, all of which are useful, but you're only going to be able to take 1 of each type on this particular lander. Here's the procedure for launching a mission, and guess what? It's a long bullet list of stuff that you need to do. Especially in the beginning, you're going to need to look at each and every one of these. I think this was done in like as a Microsoft Word file, and they've played with the fonts and stuff, and they printed it out, and they had it published on nice artworky paper. But basically, that's what this is. And the difference between this and the rule book are pretty startling. As I've mentioned, the rule book is all glossy, it's got lots of examples, it's got lots of pictures, it's going through things in detail, it's got tutorials. This, you get the bullet list, and that's it. If you understand it, great. If you don't, well, YouTube is your friend, and that's really all you got. Beginning exploration, leaving the planet, coming back again after the mission is complete. Now, you can leave the mission in two ways. It can be voluntary, it can be involuntary. If you ever have a crewman go down, it's going to be an involuntary evac, it's going to be a failed mission. It's bad. Uh, if it's a voluntary evac, that means you've probably accomplished your mission and it's a normal exit. You're going to be having to read a log entry, and that'll get you into the docking procedure, the debriefing procedure, and then unloading. So you are going to make various discoveries on planet. Some of them you can actually use as benefits on the planet, but you need these things to do research with. Almost every research item requires one material or another in order to perform, and there are 5 different types of material, ranging from mineral materials, alien tech, microorganisms, and so forth. There's like 5 different categories. And within each category, there are 3 different levels of significance for the discovery. And some of the research items require higher level of discovery. So it might be, okay, I've got a mineral here, but it's a basic one, and I need to have a rare mineral. And so if I don't have a rare mineral, I'm out of luck. I got to keep looking until I find a rare mineral so that I can do whatever the research item is that I'm trying to do. And when you unload, this is when you kind of put them in here. When you do your research, you pull them out of here and use those as kind of currency to actually get your research done. And let's see. The med bay, when you get guys hurt, this is where they end up going. There's 3 different levels of getting hurt. Basically, it's the number of turns delay before they come back. You can also accelerate the healing process by assigning crew to move it along. Certain skills are generally required to do that, but if you plan appropriately when you recruit, you can get there. Now, when you have a guy at level 3 injury, it's not guaranteed he's going to come back. He could die in the hospital. As you go farther, you pick up technologies that will help you get them out of level 3 and back in the game. And the memorial wall, yes, I had a tough mission. So far, I've lost 3 scientists, I've lost 1 security guy, 1 engineer, 2 recons. It's been tough. Save point, the idea is that the game doesn't expect you to play all the way through. They expect you to play for a while, do some missions, and then you're going to save the game away, so when you pick up again, you can pick up right where you left off, and that way the game reminds me a lot of Gloomhaven as far as how all that is managed, and that's what you can do here. And that's the ship book. This is a character card, along with the player mat for a character who is on mission. So in this case, I have Francesca Potter. The single chevron means they're a level 1. The game provides sleeves. The information is printed right on the sleeve, and you are limited by number as far as how many of each type of sleeve you have, based on their specialty and based on their level. This would be a level 1 guy, and he's a recon specialist. Each guy also has a conversion capability. So when this guy rolls a blue die with that result, he gets to convert it into some strength. So if he's trying to match up with a strength requirement on an exploration card, he can actually roll this die and get strength. He can also roll the strength specialty die, which has 3 out of its 6 sides is strength. 1 out of its side is the Vanguard symbol, which matches anything. It has a generic result, and this is oops. Sometimes that causes bad things to happen. Sometimes it's just simply a lost die. So it depends on what you're doing, what the card directs you to do. There are three colors of dice. And for some reason, they think these funky little dots in the corner are going to help you if you're colorblind. They are very slightly different one to the other, and especially the difference between the blue ones and the red ones. I know. Can you really tell the difference? I, I wouldn't want to rely on this if I couldn't tell the difference between the colors. I'm not sure what I do. Green, you can tell. It's significantly enough different. You flip this counter when your turn is done. In a turn, you go around the table. Each character gets to perform two actions, and once they're done, it goes on to the next guy. And then one player has the start token. In the first turn on planet, it is always the recon guy. He can name himself to be the first player to go, or he can give this away to someone else to let them be the first player. And then at the end of any round, whoever has the start token will be the decider as far as who is going to be the next starting player. And that can include even themselves. So you can name yourself as the starting player if you have the starting token. Note that this is a cooperative game, and so there's really no advantage to hogging this because there are tactical things going on the map that may make it more beneficial to the team to let a certain character go first other than yourself. And so all these things will be taken into account once you start into the game for real. Each character gets section cards. In this case, as a level 1 character, he only gets level 1 section cards. There are also level 2 and 3. At the start of each scenario, each character gets to pick at least 10 cards to take along with them. It's not too hard in the beginning, as I think it's only about 14 cards. So you're going to leave 4 cards behind if you want the skinniest deck, and you probably do. This is not unlike Magic the Gathering in that a big fat deck generally is not the way to go. In the scenarios I've played, I have never exhausted a deck for a character. And even if you do, you just reshuffle the discards and it becomes your new deck. So there's no real detriment to having a skinny deck. Each card has kind of a general thing that it can do during while the player's acting, and then one that he can pay for with dice that's a little bit more special. So each card has two options of things to do. For a level 1 character, they can have up to 2 cards in their hand, which I have done here in my handy dandy card holder. They have a draw deck and they have their dice. I have promoted my characters as I've gone through. They start with 5 dice, and during the course of the game, you can pay success tokens to increase the number of dice that they have. And when you do that, it increases it for all the characters permanently. All characters always have the same number of dice when they start a scenario. So in this case, I've got 8 dice, and so I have paid the cost 3 times. The cost is success tokens equal to the number of dice you currently have. So as you go up, the more expensive it's going to be. And eventually you get like this guy where there are no more slots for level 1. So a level 1 character, this is the maximum dice he can have. If he gets to level 2, if you look carefully, you'll see there's 2 stripes here, 3 stripes here. Characters can be level 1, 2, or 3. Higher level characters can use more dice. Higher level characters have access to higher level cards that they can bring along. And they also can have more cards in their hand when they start. So level 1 can have 2 cards, level 2 can have 3 cards, level 4 can have 4 cards in their hand, maximum. And they get to start with their maximum hand size. Over here, special abilities for the character, and that is different for each of the different characters. There is some overlap, but basically there's a wide latitude in what these are. And you start with a certain number of charges for that. So I have 2 charges for this guy. And you can use those charges during the course of gameplay to do special things. Here's the first map you will see after you do the tutorial. So I don't feel too bad about showing you this. I'm trying not to give spoilers away, but if you've played the game, you've seen this already. And if you haven't played the game, it's the first thing you're going to see once you start a real mission. So I don't think I'm giving away all that much. The rules go into detail as to how to interpret each of these things. It's basically telling you what the success rolls are and what the failure dice rolls are and what the payoff for doing it and what the penalty for not doing it is. Over here we see log entry. So once you get to this box, you go to log entry 311. For me, that would be to fire up the application, type in 311 and listen to what it says, and then perform the actions it tells you to do. Note that you when it's reading back, it doesn't tell you the actions. It gives you the story, and then it may give a laundry list of actions you need to do to mess with the fiddly bits. All the little tokens and cards and things that you need to do for this log entry. And sometimes they scroll onto the next screen, so be careful that you scroll down using the application. Most times there won't be anything there. It just won't go down any farther, but sometimes there is, and it's important to keep the game state in line with the way the game is expecting it to be. You move from area to area, so in his action, this guy can move from, say, from here to here. The cost will be to fatigue one die, so he would take one die and put it from his available pool into his spent pool. And the only way to get dice back out of the spent pool again is to rest. Every time you rest, you burn a supply that you've taken with on your landing craft. And if you run out of supply, then you start burning dice permanently to regenerate your into your active pool. So if you have, say, 4 dice in the spent pool, you will get up to 5 of them back, but you will permanently burn one and it'll go into its storage container. So you will gradually reduce the number of dice you have if the team has run out of supplies. Generally, there's going to be a mission for the planet exploration, and that mission can change. You say you succeed with one mission, and then whoops, here comes another mission at you to explore the planet. You to be successful, you need to succeed on these missions. If you don't succeed on these missions, it will be a failed mission, and you'll pay the price once you get back to the Vanguard. The core game comes with the figures. It has more than this. It's got more than you need, actually, with these colored things to designate which team he's with. So this guy's a recon guy. He's got kind of that pinkish sort of color. This is the landing craft, and I have purchased the add-on miniatures. So normally with the core box, you get a standee. I got the miniatures. I went a little nuts on this one. So I got the miniatures. All right, so that is what you see when you are in a mission as you go through. Now, sometimes, because of supply situation, maybe you just want to send one guy out to go through these branches, or maybe two. So if your guys are not moving around, they're not going to be burning so many dice. They're not burning so many dice, they don't need to rest. If they don't rest, they don't burn supply. On the other hand, if you got plentiful supply and you think you've got sufficient supply so that all the characters can move around and do stuff, well, count yourself lucky. Okay, so that's kind of giving you an idea of this. I am purposefully being very high level here because there are already many videos explaining all this in great detail. The main value I can add at this point are my own thoughts on the game rather than the gameplay itself. So here goes. Learning the game. The tutorial supplied with the game in its own rulebook section is outstanding. It leads players through their first mission in great detail, to the point where special tutorial card decks are supplied with cards appearing in a pre-programmed order to help you learn. While recovery information is provided, save yourself the trouble by not shuffling the tutorial decks. Note that the mission tutorial rules section is presented after the generic game setup information. While the setup for the tutorial is separate and distinct from the general game setup, you need to go back and perform the general setup after you complete the tutorial. There is key information in the general setup that is required to begin the campaign even if you play the tutorial. So you will need to go back earlier in the book and verify that your ship book and other parts of the game are set up correctly before moving on beyond the tutorial. If you do not, you will feel lost. Ask me how I know this. Playing missions. Okay, you have set up your first real mission. While missions may appear at first to follow the same general format, trust me, so far the game has managed to throw all kinds of curveballs to make each very different from one another. One of Awaken Realm's earlier space operas, Nemesis, is noteworthy for how much it hates players. One reviewer took the trouble to figure out all the creative ways the game could kill you, and it was not a small number. Spacecraft going off into deep space, dead. Eaten by space alien, dead. Left behind after a murdering player ejects all the escape pods, dead. Make it back to Earth only to have a space alien hatch from your belly button, very dead. ISS Vanguard does not hate its players. It just doesn't like them very much. While it may not kill you, it can just make you wish you were dead. Failed missions, dead crewmen, horrible morale, research not progressing, and so on. All can make it feel like you are climbing a steeper and steeper hill trying to progress the campaign. As I have said in other reviews, space is hard. The rules. On-mission rules are presented in the rulebook. It is well written and pretty easy to follow and provides nice illustrations and supporting examples to help you figure out the game. And yes, an extremely helpful table of contents, index, and even a glossary of terms is provided. But none of this has anything to do with what happens in the on-ship portion of the game. For this, you need to follow the bullet lists that are presented on each divider section of the ship's three-ring binder. After you understand the game, this is okay. But while you are learning, it's pretty much throwing you into the deep end of the pool. Either you get it or you don't, with YouTube as your only backstop. It's almost as if there were two different teams developing each part of the game and never quite got together to cross-check what they were each doing. It's okay. Watch YouTube and you will figure it out. But the two approaches are pretty wrenching while you are first learning the game. All right, so let's talk about the log. Like narrative games? Then Vanguard may be your thing. The approximately 110 pages of log entries present the story as you go through your missions. The support app is really well done and makes the experience much more enjoyable as events are read to you with some impressive in-character voice acting. But after playing a while, I found, or at least I thought I found, that the app provided log entries were not matching the log entry that I was instructed to enter. So say I was told to play log number 100. I enter log 100 into the app and find that log 137 is being read back to me. What gives? Well, upon reviewing the written log, I find that several are mere branch points to other logs. So the first time you read log 100, it sends you to log 137. The second sends you to log 171, while the third sends you to log 204. In the written log, you are instructed to put an X in a box showing that you were here earlier. Each subsequent visit has you X out a different box. The app does this for you automatically. That's the good news. The bad news is that I believe it remembers that you visited log 100 once already, so it automatically takes you to the second branch. In a perfect world, this is fine. But if you were to try to repeat going to log 100 because you were confused why you were seeing log 137, it will now take you to log 171, and so forth. So far, I don't think it is possible to trace back to an earlier game state. So once you fall off the path, you are just off the path. Good news is that the text log book is still there and will get you back to where you need to be, but you will have to take this into account next time you try for log 100 in the app. Note that the full log is available for printing on the company's website so that you can always print off a fresh copy and mark it up when you play. Not a bad option when something weird happens in the app. Social gameplay. ISS Vanguard is highly rated on Board Game Geek, coming in at an 8.6 overall. I agree with this assessment in multiplayer mode. I think the game would be great fun even with two players. Also, like Gloomhaven, players may drift in and out of a group while the campaign progresses. There are something like 16 star systems to visit in the core game, so unlike Gloomhaven, players are not necessarily signing their lives away when they begin a new campaign. And yes, there are two expansions available should you wish to sign your life away. Poor souls. Solitaire play. My own experience is limited to solitaire play. And guess what? The game is fun playing solitaire. My inner space geek is satisfied with the superior writing offered in the campaign log. But the game has a lot of what I'd call fiddly bits that need to be attended to throughout the game. Repeatedly, The player is prompted to fish out a certain card out of one of the boxes, place chits on cards to show passage of time, consume supplies when resting, change mission cards, change global condition cards, fish counters out of the discovery bag and assign to discovery decks, and so on. In multiplayer, even with two people, there would be more brains and hands to handle the fiddly bits. In solitaire, it's all on you. For example, I'd estimate that I spend 90 minutes between missions just cleaning up the prior mission, doing shipborne overhead, and then setting up the next mission. For me, it drains away some of the excitement of discovery. Bottom line, while Vanguard will be deservedly loved by some players, it is not for everyone. Players who love real narrative while still feeling like they are actually playing a game where they can influence an outcome will like this game. For others who don't like a steady diet of fiddly bit overhead will feel less enthused. As I noted at the beginning of this review, I dove all into Vanguard when Kickstarter was announced. I paid the price in time for not allowing multiple shipments, and have toured somewhere in between the two types of gamers I just mentioned. Maybe the lesson will be to not buy into expansions when a new offering is posted by whatever game company du jour. Yes, get the core game, scoop up whatever stretch goals are offered, but wait until release to determine whether I need the add-ons. While I calculated I saved maybe $100 over the current post-release pricing, I could very well have decided to order less of the product that may not have been the perfect fit for me. At least I would get something delivered in a reasonable period of time and maybe avoid figuring out how to store all these humongous boxes that come with the game. Good thing I know woodworking. I foresee more shelves in my future. Well, that is my thinking on ISS Vanguard. If you are already a subscriber to my channel, I am thankful and hope we can continue exploring this wonderful hobby of ours together. If you are not subscribed, please take a moment to hit the button to follow along whatever I can come up with as we go forward. Either way, I value all comments. I read them all and respond to most. And this is Paul, the Oakenite, wishing you all a pleasant evening.